mistreated under his watch as he opened canneries and amassed profits. Pineapples, and canned pineapples especially, became a key export for Hawaii, and the demand in the mainland United States skyrocketed. Here's a quote from The Dark Side of the Pineapple: How Dole's Pineapple Industry Exploited Hawaii's Land and People. Closing. Dole used Hawaiian culture and its desirability as a tropical exotified paradise to market his product to Americans. Continuing the symbol of the pineapple as an object of opulence and leisure, he fused the exoticism of Hawaii in with the fruit itself as a delectable, irresistible fruit ripe for picking. This not only perpetuated stereotypes about Native Hawaiians and their culture, but it justified the continual colonization and erasure of Hawaiian sovereignty through their portrayal as less civilized than the white settlers who stole their land, overthrew their queen, and profited from their culture. I'll also be sharing that piece as a resource after the session. Dole plantations and industrialized canneries also enacted racist labor practices, with white workers receiving managerial positions, leaving Asian immigrant and Hawaiians in hard labor. Moving to the issues of today, over-tourism and gentrification have ransacked the islands. Hotel and resort chains, restaurants, and the continued commodification and broad marketing of Hawaiian culture have created a massive draw globally for constant visitation and exploitation of an already exploited land and people. Native Hawaiians were reported to make 13.6% less than the average tourism industry worker. Additionally, many tourists come with great disrespect for the land, disregard, or general ignorance for the history of its people, and many have caused tangible damage to the environment itself. One of the worst parts about the tourism in this context is those who decide to come back permanently. People have begun buying up homes in Hawaii, causing a crisis we see widely across this country: gentrification, on a mass scale. The average price of a single family home in Hawaii is $1 million. The cost of living in Hawaii is 149% higher than the national average. 54% of homeowners in Hawaii are not Native Hawaiians, and there are currently 36,000 properties in Hawaii listed on Airbnb, meaning some homes are purchased for these steep costs and are not even being resided in all the time. Additionally, 60% of condos and apartments are sold to either investors or second homeowners. So what does this mean for Native Hawaiians? Native Hawaiian and Pacific Islanders more broadly account for 10% of the population, yet are 35% of the unhoused population. These unhoused communities are also severely neglected and experience disease on an overwhelming level. It did not need to be this way. Hawaiians deserve their land back, the ability to own homes on their own land, and should never have had their environment destroyed for the sake of white greed. Before moving to discuss Puerto Rico and finding parallels amongst their histories, I want to play the famous and one of my personal favorite written songs by Queen Liliuokalani, Aloha Oe. The first time I listened to it after learning these histories, it moved me to tears. And again, the disclaimer: I do not own the rights to Now, moving to discuss what's happening in Puerto Rico and finding the parallels of this history with Hawaii. Beginning with briefly its pre colonial history, the Taino people were the indigenous people of Puerto Rico, and more islands such as Jamaica and Hispaniola. They had a rich culture, language, and spiritual practices, and they were skilled workers, dancers, artists, and so much more. With European arrival and conquest in the 15th and 16th centuries, the Taino people were forcefully worked to death, resistance punishable by death, and killed by diseases that the Spanish brought with them. Their culture was violently watered down, and even the Taino identity was told and thought to be completely eradicated. Alongside the later West African identity in Puerto Rico as a result of the transatlantic slave trade and slavery, the heritage was denied and desired by the oppressors and white supremacy to be forgotten altogether. However, Puerto Ricans, along with many other Caribbean people, have fought for reclamation of this historically complex, resilient, and vibrant fabric of their culture, tracing words, historical sites, foods, music, dance styles, and genetics back to their Taino and West African roots. Even the island's original name, Borinquen, is boasted proudly, and the Boricua identity is strong. Moving to the making of the Puerto Rico of today, as the Kamehameha dynasty in Hawaii was fighting away calls for annexation from the United States, Puerto Rico in the 1830s was under the rule of Spanish imperialism. As the Spanish royal systems were experiencing instability, Puerto Rico felt every aspect of quick political adjustment and back and forth as a result. At this point as well, the coffee and sugarcane industries became central to its plantation economies, which, of course, were reliant on slave labor by West Africans and indigenous people. And the journey to autonomy from Spain begins with the Grito de Lares, which was the first coordinated pro independence movement against Spain in 1868, which translates to the Cry of Lares. Labeled an insurrection, hundreds of rebels went through a number of towns to liberate them under the idea of a free republic of Puerto Rico. Eventually, the Spanish arrested all who were involved and convicted them all to death penalty sentences. They later were given amnesty by Jose Laureano Sanz and released in 1869, the year following. Fear of further revolution, the Spanish began imposing some reforms and abolished slavery in 1873. In the 1880s, Roman Baldottorio de Castro pushed for Puerto Rican autonomous rule, and the suppression of this movement was experienced and it only strengthened it, leading to the 1897 establishment of the Autonomy Party. The government was now autonomous in nature but parliamentary in practice and structure, still with royal Spanish representation and oversight. Its representation held the power to pull the plug on this given autonomy at any time. Moving to the Spanish American War, this autonomous government was interrupted and unable to be really truly put into practice when Puerto Rico was given to the United States following the Spanish American War of 1898, along with Cuba and the Philippines. The U.S. acquisition of Puerto Rico was seen to be useful for agricultural profit and a place for its warships. They had their wish of a naval presence within the Caribbean as its next step on its imperialistic mission. Under U.S. rule, Puerto Ricans experienced very little representation in government, and in 1909, the Olmstead Act gave the U.S. president a direct role in all of the affairs of Puerto Rico. During World War I, for fear of German ships in the Caribbean and demand for more rights, the Jones Act gave Puerto Ricans the U.S. citizenship. However, despite promising more, it didn't do very much more beyond that. These calls for representation and self determination still remained unanswered. Many of the early U.S. imposed governors of Puerto Rico were widely focused on Americanizing the institutions, the language, the youth, and the politics, with removed concern for its autonomy. Moving to sugarcane, Charles Herbert Allen was the first civilian governor of the island, but after just 17 months of holding this position, He left to take a leadership role at the then American Sugar Refining. He then brought this company to Puerto Rico, which would later be renamed Domino Sugar, which I know we are all familiar with. He used US government power to get everything he needed: land, railroad construction, subsidies, rights to water, and tax advantages. And after Puerto Rico was officially ruled a territory of the US, it effectively meant that minimum wage requirements and bargaining rights were no longer centralized, given even more room for exploitation of laborers. By 1930, 54% of land that could be used to plant crops and be worked on was occupied by sugar. As a result, the biodiversity was effectively destroyed, and still Puerto Rico needs to import 85% of its food. There was no more farming of coffee, tobacco, and many other crops. And lastly, as the Great Depression hit, the US turned its attention away from Puerto Rico, leaving it pretty defenseless against environmental disasters and hurricanes. Next, the quote from the song, No suelten la bandera o olviden el Lolai. The Puerto Rican flag is centered around the pride of the island, but its history reveals revolution, resistance to imperialism, and global Puerto Rican identity and culture persisting regardless of location. Starting during the aforementioned Grito de Lares, the first Puerto Rican flag was instituted during this time. Similar to the Dominican flag, it represents the push for the Republic of Puerto Rico in 1868, and that is seen on the top left. As Puerto Ricans remained in partnership with Cubans for their independence from Spain, those involved in the movement created the Puerto Rican flag as a relative of the Cuban flag, with the colors inverted and the azul clarito, which is the lighter blue. However, as a result of US legislation in 1948, La Ley de Mordaza, or the gag law, was passed to suppress any calls for Puerto Rican independence, making flying the Puerto Rican flag or even talking about Puerto Rican independence illegal. And that flag is represented on the bottom. When the law was repealed, the new flag that was set in stone had a new, darker blue, one that was closer in color to match the same blue on the US flag. And you can see that on the top right. Moving to discuss what Puerto Rico is currently facing. The economy is one subject. For decades, job opportunities have begun diminishing. The economy revolves around the US and those within the Puerto Rican elite, and not around Puerto Ricans. It is becoming increasingly expensive to live in Puerto Rico over the course of the past decades. And as a result, 6.1 million Puerto Ricans live in the United States, nearly double the amount of the population within the island itself. Because of how US economy centered Puerto Rico is, in 2016, Puerto Rico was over $70 billion in debt. And repayment legislation and the programs have not all been very functional. And many of these programs that are working to ease the debt have been searching for money and caused cuts to other very crucial programs like educational or other public serving resources, which is increasingly unfair to Puerto Ricans. Additionally, over tourism, housing, and gentrification are a major issue. And I would be remiss to discuss Puerto Rico and not discuss the detrimental effect Hurricane Maria had on the island's infrastructure and how the lack of support furthered this damage. In terms of housing in Hurricane Maria, thousands of homes were destroyed during this hurricane, causing even more people to leave the island. On the flip side of this, with this exodus, coupled with with Act 20 and Act 22 legislation, they were set to attract investors to the island, which caused an imbalance to who was owning property in Puerto Rico. Additionally, associated with these acts of legislation, tax exemptions further make them attractive to people who are not native to the island to want to move there. And additionally, because of tourism, external large hotel chains and resorts are beginning to privatize more coastlines, more beaches, and other parts of the environment. Now, with that, let us return to lo que le pasó a Hawaii. And I hope that after that, you were able to see some of the similarities as Bad Bunny intended. I have some written reflection questions to consider. Feel free to write them down, take a photo of them, journal them, or even answer some of them in the chat as you feel led to. And I'm going to just replay the song so we can reflect on the lyrics after what we have just gone over, and maybe you can find even more parallels and things that reflected to you during this presentation. So feel free to answer these questions while I replay the video.
Esto fue un sueño que yo tuve. Ella se ve bonita, que a veces le vaya mal. En los ojos una sonrisa, aguantándose llorar. La espuma de sus orillas parecieran de champán. Son alcohol para las heridas, para la tristeza bailar. Son alcohol para las heridas, porque hay mucho que sanar. En el verde monte adentro no se puede respirar. Las nubes están más cerca, con Dios se puede hablar. Soy el jíbaro llorando, otro más que se marchó. No quería irse por Lando, pero el corrupto lo echó. Y no se sabe hasta cuándo. Quieren quitarme el río y también la playa. Quieren el barrio mío y que abuelita se vaya. No, no suelten la bandera ni olviden la Lolay. Que no quiero que hagan contigo lo que le pasó a Hawái. Cuidado, Luis, cuidado. Aquí nadie quiso irse y quien se fue sueña con volver. Si algún día me tocara, que mucho me va a doler. Otra jíbara luchando, una que no se dejó. No quería irse tampoco y en la isla se quedó. Y no se sabe hasta cuándo. Quieren quitarme el río y también la playa. Quieren el barrio mío y que tus hijos se vayan. No, no suelten la bandera ni olviden la Lolay. Que no quiero que hagan contigo lo que le pasó a Hawái. No, no suelten la bandera ni olviden la Lolay. Que no quiero que hagan contigo.
Thanks so much to those of you who took this time to reflect. I'll also reshare some of these questions as we continue and we share this out afterwards, so you can continue to reflect as you wish with time. And thank you for the activity in the chat. I really appreciate seeing your thoughts and also some of the little feedback I'm seeing. I appreciate it greatly. As we move towards closing us out, I want to read an excerpt from one of the hymnals written by Queen Liliuokalani that being from the Queen's Prayer. And it just says, "Behold not with malevolence the sins of man, but forgive and cleanse. And so, O Lord, protect us beneath your wings, and let peace be our portion now and forevermore." Here are just a couple ways to stay connected with us. If you want to receive our weekly newsletter, which is the Truth in Action Roundup, you can do so with the link sojo.net/TARU. You can also see some more of our upcoming events at sojo.net/events. And yeah, I just want to thank everybody so much for coming. I really had a lot of fun overall throughout all of these Context Unlocked webinar series sessions that we've had, but especially with this one. This subject is very, very near and dear to my heart. So I sincerely hope that you learned something. Again, any and all questions that were put in the chat, we will be looking into and giving you a full answer in our recap email that we send out. But I'm so grateful for all of you who came, and I hope that share it. I'm going to again take this time to plead that we don't get any copyright strikes, because we are really just learning. We want to continue to spread this learning through music with everyone. So again, thank you all so much for coming.